Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm really excited to be here with a very special guest, Lethabo Huma, who is an absolutely incredible artist who's also been an innovator and on the forefront of this new crypto art movement. So really excited to be able to hear from her and have her share her story, and then we'll kind of get into some of the weird, amazing world of crypto art that we're seeing. And so, Lethabo, welcome. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. Would love to just start with hearing your story. How did you start creating art and ultimately becoming a full-time professional artist?
Thank you for having me. I think I would say that I've always been a creative person. I've always been interested in the arts from a very young age. And I sort of started, so I used to create as a hobby. But then as I grew older, I realized that art was something that would be a bit more of a priority for me. I remember, I think around, I was actually matriculating that year. A friend of mine had suggested that I should exhibit my work, and people actually liked my work. So I think from then on, I sort of started seeing my art as something that I should take a bit more seriously. I started posting my work on Instagram. And during that time, so for like the first, I've been a professional artist for 5 years. So for the first 2 years of my career, I started, I was more of a traditional artist, but really just experimenting with different tools. My doodled, sketched here and there, did sculpting. And in my experimentation of different kinds of tools I can create with, I found digital art. I found the digital art space and I thought it was so cool. And yeah, I've just been creating digitally for the remainder of the 3 years until now.
And how did you
that's it, yeah.
How did you learn digital art? Kind of, how did you teach yourself how to use some of these new platforms? Kind of, when was the time that you were like, digital is kind of this new form factor that you want to get into?
I watched a lot of tutorials. I was just so intrigued by how you can create on a tablet, on an iPad, on a phone. So I watched a couple of tutorials. Ever since I've just been watching tutorials, trying to better myself. And then I sort of saved up for a little iPad, secondhand iPad, and then I just started using that to create. Because first I was creating on my phone, and I just felt like I needed a bigger-ish canvas that I could afford at the time. So yeah, I've just been watching a bunch of tutorials on the internet, on YouTube, and that's just basically how I taught myself how to paint digitally.
That's amazing. And then how did you start kind of building a business and building a career, when you got started with digital art, and what were the primary ways that you would monetize and kind of earn a living from the digital art?
Yeah, I just promoted my work on social media. Social media was the main place I sort of got my business from. So I just kept on posting work, promoting, paying for promotional ads on Instagram. And I did a lot of commissions at the time. When I was starting off, I did a lot of commissions just so that I can sort of sustain myself. And yeah, so the bigger projects I got for commissions, the more I could sustain myself longer, and then the more I could sort of focus on my own personal work.
Very interesting. So then how did you discover, crypto? So you're a digital artist, you're very active on social media, you're promoting your work, you're doing commissions. Kind of, when was the first time that you just heard about crypto in general? Had you heard about it before it was connected to art? And would love to just hear that journey from what does crypto have to do with art in the first place?
Yeah. I would hear about Bitcoin a lot, but I wasn't really I was intrigued by it, but I still, there wasn't any connection to it, but I was always sort of concerned about the authenticity of digital art. And I had a friend that I would sort of talk to about these things, and he's more into the whole crypto art space. He loves that space. And that's how he approached me with the information about what crypto art is and how to tokenize my work and so forth. But yeah, mainly from a friend of mine. That's how I heard about crypto art. Yeah.
And was he in South Africa as well? Were there people kind of that you interacted with in person that were into crypto, or did you discover it kind of purely online through friends and people that you engaged with that were completely across the world?
Purely online. I've never heard about crypto art from like a person, someone around me, but yeah, purely online from friends online. Yeah.
Okay. And so he tells you about there's this thing called crypto art, and you've been thinking about, I'd love to hear your thoughts more on like this question of the challenge of authenticity, that you're creating digital art. How do people know that that is a piece that you created? What stops someone just in general from screenshotting or downloading that file and trying to pretend like that's something that they created? Like, how did you think about that problem of authenticity?
I think at that time, before I heard about crypto, it's just always been a concern, I think, for all digital artists, really. And yeah, it's just been a concern. It's been something that sort of you can only protect your work by linking your work, tagging yourself. So, asking people to credit your work when they repost it, signing your work, and or sort of like secretly putting small signatures like in the features of the person's face that you painted. So yeah. There wasn't really anything else that sort of, unless you, even just copywriting your work is a thing, but there wasn't something that somebody can still claim your work, screenshot it, paint it, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think crypto art really helped digital artists a lot with that.
Okay, so it was kind of the provenance and like being able to authenticate that this was actually your work that was the first piece that stood out. Kind of, what were other aspects of when your friend, that first conversation, your friend's telling you about there's this thing called crypto art, like what were your initial questions and thoughts, and like where were other areas that you thought it was interesting?
I think my initial thoughts were how is it possible that you can protect my work online? How do I mint my work? How do I receive the money? Because then I got introduced to ETH. What is ETH? What is a wallet? How do I get that money to me? You know what I mean? So it was a lot. It was a lot. So I sort of had to do a lot of research after he had told me the initial stuff, and just sort of sometimes just let it simmer in. Sometimes you get so much information that it's a bit overwhelming, So I just sort of took my time, did my research, and just let it simmer in until it sort of made sense to me. Yeah.
So I'm curious, kind of the order of operations of the process, like as you're getting into this. Did you set up a crypto wallet, an Ethereum wallet first? Like, did you transfer some ETH? Did you buy any other crypto art? Like, what was that progression of like step by step? Like, I want to explore this and check it out. What did you do first?
First, I looked up platforms, tokenizing platforms, your Wearable, SuperRare, Maker's Place. So I just looked up those places and just sort of scoped the area and saw what kind of work was on there, how much pieces were going for, the kind of people that were on there, joined a couple of crypto art groups on Discord. That helped quite a bit. And yeah, after that, it was just a matter of trying to figure out which platform I can sort of mint on. And at that time, that's when my friend Boo sort of then ran me down the whole how to create your own wallet, what MetaMask is, having a wallet address. And then sort of I then transferred some money into my wallet. And then I applied on SuperRare.
Interesting. So you kind of started with the platform and like from the art perspective. And then once you saw that there was potential in the platform, you're like, oh, I need a crypto wallet. So then you started setting up a crypto wallet. And was MetaMask the first one that you used? And kind of what was that experience like of, writing your seed words down and Now you have this browser extension that's holding money. Like, how did you, think about that as you set it up?
It was a very tedious process, but we actually did it in one phone call. So what we did was he told me about MetaMask, and then he told me about Luno. So in South Africa, for you to get money in your MetaMask, you need another wallet called Luno. So we set up a MetaMask account, and then he also helped me set up a Luno account. And then I transferred money into my Luno wallet, and then I transferred money into my MetaMask account. When it comes to the seed phrase, he just said that I wrote it down, and then he was like, "This is very important." And I just thought it was quite smart because the seed phrase is quite difficult to sort of hack or whatnot. So I just looked at it in that way. But it was a lot. It was a lot to take in one phone call. But yeah, it just sort of all makes sense at some point. Yeah.
So you have that first experience that many of us have where, the first time you're transferring crypto, you're copying and pasting an address and you're nervous. It's like, is this the right address? Like, are these funds going to get there? Did you do like a small test transaction, send like $1 to that address before you send more? And that is an experience everybody has.
Yeah, definitely. I did the same thing. I definitely did the same thing. Yeah.
And so you discovered that there were these, platforms. And so I guess kind of to start to take a step back, for people listening that like, they have never heard of the concept of crypto art. They've heard about crypto as in cryptocurrency, but how do you describe what is crypto art in the first place? What does it mean to tokenize one of your, amazing pieces of artwork? Like, what is that in the first place?
This is how I look at it. I look at it as I treat it as the same as a traditional painting. So I'd say that crypto art or the crypto art space is a place where you're allowed to treat your digital art as an original. There's a quote by a very popular crypto artist, Heka Tao. She says, everyone sees it, but only one owns it. And that's essentially what crypto art is. It's a space where you can tokenize your work, or it's a space where your art is allowed to be an original. That one piece is directed to you as the owner, even though there's many copies, but then there's like a Mona Lisa sort of painting, it's only in one place, only one person or one museum, or it's only in one place. But, there's so many pictures of it around, or so many copies of it around. So that's the analogy I apply, yeah.
So it's almost like it creates this element of scarcity for, digital artwork. That like physical artwork has always had scarcity. Digital artwork hasn't had it. And so as you are creating a token that represents your artwork that has an image file of your artwork in it, and then that token's connected to your address. So you used to just do a commission and send someone a file. Now, what does it mean to sell crypto art?
It definitely has... when it comes to commissions, that is, I think it definitely has sort of put a question mark on, is it something that I should now tokenize? If it's not tokenized, is it still protected? But I'd say that right now, I think crypto art is still a very relatively new platform. And I think right now, tokenizing your work or having it as a token, having one image file linked to you with just the painting that you've just created is enough. And I think even commissions can be tokenized, but I think the process would be the same. However, it would be a bit confusing to someone who if someone who commissions you does not really know what crypto art is, and them having to get a wallet, an address, and so forth and so forth. So, yeah. But I'd say that right now it's enough. Yeah.
It's almost like there's a different collector base in people who are collecting crypto art. They are purchasing these tokens on exchanges, and so you have a new type of collector that is purchasing the token and holding it in a crypto wallet, which is different than you used to sell to people who you just send a file to, and that was kind of how you monetized digital work before.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I want to get into the platform element. So you heard that there were these companies and platforms that existed. So you started to look at them. Kind of what stood out as you looked at the different platforms, and kind of what were you looking for as you were trying to decide which platform to bring your work to?
I was mainly looking for protection, really, and very just protection of my work and as my name as an artist. So I think what really stood out to me was how SuperRare did their things, how SuperRare sort of, I think also other platforms do it, but at the time I only knew about SuperRare and Rarible. I think also, known origin, but what I liked about SuperRare was that artists had to apply. So you had to go through a process where they sort of verify you're who you say you are, that's your work. And that sort of made me feel like my work is protected. So that's what really drew me into picking SuperRare as the platform that I wanted to start tokenizing my work on. Okay, so it seems like there are multiple elements where, one, you need a platform to actually tokenize, and so you need someone to help you do that. But then you also want it to have some level of curation, where it's a marketplace that people can purchase it on. And so you found SuperRare as they help you tokenize, and it's more of a curated marketplace where others were kind of very open. Anyone could tokenize whatever they want, and there wasn't that brand protection for what you're building as an artist. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And then could you talk about the process of, so you engage with SuperRare, you apply, as an artist, and then you're accepted, then what? Like, what does that look like in terms of the onboarding? How do you get your first piece on SuperRare? So what SuperRare does is that they set up a meeting with one of the people from the team, and they basically just sort of tell you everything you need to know about tokenizing, how to promote your work. So they set up a video call with you. They tell you how to tokenize, what's good, what to do, what not to do, what's advisable, what's not advisable, and so forth. So I think also that's what I don't know about other platforms, but I really like that about SuperRare. And so it was quite easy for me to tokenize my work afterwards because I knew exactly what to do. And, someone from that works on SuperRare had sort of shown me sort of the way to tokenize. So, yeah. Okay, so they provide it to you as like a self-serve tool. They teach you how to use it. Now you can go into SuperRare whenever you want, and you can create new pieces and tokenize them and make them available for sale. Yeah, definitely, yes. Amazing. So I want to try and show SuperRare so people can see it here. Let's see if we can share the screen. So this is an example of the SuperRare platform. And this is kind of, from my experience here, I discovered crypto art and really started getting into it in December. And your piece here at Midnight Blues was the first piece that I saw that I was like, this is incredible. Like, this is beautiful artwork that is now tokenized, as this kind of new form factor. And so, I was lucky enough, I got in a bidding war with one of your existing collectors, and was lucky enough that you were willing to sell this to me. So talk about this piece of, Midnight Blues, kind of, what was the origin of this piece, kind of, both, the process of creating it, all the way towards, tokenizing it and then animating it. That what really stood out to me is that when you have this new form factor, you can create artwork that, you couldn't really create before. Like, physical piece, it's very hard to animate. So we'd love to just hear kind of the journey of this piece. Okay. This piece was inspired by it was inspired by sort of a, a moment where you have, how can I put this, but sort of having sleepless nights or sort of anxiety over your hopes and ambitions and dreams. So it was inspired by being in a place where you have a lot on your mind with regards to your future, the hopes that you have, dreams. And that's essentially what Midnight Blues was about. When it came to animating it, I think I just wanted to give it. I'm sort of still new into the animation space, so Midnight Blues was an experimentation of my animation skills. Yeah.
This is amazing. This is the first time that you ever animated anything, and it's like it becomes alive. And I think the other piece that stood out to me is this analogy of these are Harry Potter paintings. Like these are paintings that are living and breathing that you can interact with. So can you talk a bit more about, like, as an artist, now that you have these new tools, how do you think about ways to combine them together, and kind of what did you learn as you look to animate, and kind of what the market is as you sell pieces that have these different elements to them?
I think when it comes to the market, what I'd say that moving images sort of are more in my eyes, for me too, I think moving images are more attractive than still images, right? Even though they still look good, but I feel like animation just gives it an extra bit of thing. And I think animating is something that I've always sort of wanted to do. So yeah. I'd say that when it comes to sort of the software that I used to create Midnight Blues, I sort of worked in one workspace, Procreate. It's just so you can applications there. So I think that software definitely has helped me sort of experiment with different kinds of ways of expressing myself through digital art.
Very cool. And it's been amazing to see the different ways that artists across the ecosystem have experimented with these new tools. So things like programmable art. Some of what artists like Micah Johnson have done with Async, where you can actually bring in external data to this piece. And so just the idea to me of like the background of a piece of art could change with the weather. Like, so it's just living and breathing over time. And there are just things that you couldn't do with physical art. So as a collector, I've never bought a piece of physical art in my adult life. It feels, one, it's like, where am I going to put it? Like, I have to have it shipped to me. And then if I want to sell it, like, how am I going to do that? The idea that crypto art is both, has these unique elements that physical art doesn't have, and it's just so much easier to purchase and to show and be able to collect. And so it seems like it is increasing the overall market for art collecting. But curious your thoughts on kind of what you've seen in response from collectors.
Sorry, the sound was a bit bad. What was the question?
Sorry, that might have been my connection. I'm curious what you've seen in terms of kind of the market for crypto art collectors, where for me personally, like, I didn't collect physical art. I've never bought a piece of physical art, but I love collecting crypto art. It's easier to be able to collect. It's easier to be able to buy and sell. And so it seems like it creates a bigger market of collectors who wouldn't have purchased a physical piece, but will purchase a digital piece. So are you seeing that in terms of, just a bigger market for your work?
Definitely. I think there's a much more bigger market simply because it's so much more convenient to collect artwork, not just only because of the whole transaction of receiving the artwork, but also location, like physical location. I think was from so many different places that are so far away, especially now in the pandemic, it would be quite hard to sort of collect a physical piece that you would have liked that you love by a certain artist. So I think the internet also helps with that and helps with just sort of there being a bigger market of collectors.
And what have you seen from what does a typical collector look like? Are these mostly people that are already into crypto and then now getting into art? Have you seen people who were traditional art collectors that are now crypto art collectors? Is it does it tend to skew younger? I'm curious, as you've engaged with your collectors, are they all like me, or are any of them actually more knowledgeable about art and we're traditional art collectors?
From what I've seen, from what I've experienced, it's always two types of collectors: new collectors, collectors that are just entered the space, and or very old collectors that have been investing in crypto art for quite some time. That's sort of the two types of collectors that I've seen. Yeah.
And then when you tokenize these pieces and you sell them, can you talk more about kind of the process of the actual sale, where you're doing auctions and people are bidding, and then there's this transaction history? Have you experimented with different types have you tried to just kind of set one price, or do you kind of like the competitive element of an auction? What does a typical, sales experience kind of look like from your side?
I think for me, I'm quite new to the space. I joined SuperRare in December, but I'm a very experimental person. So I've been experimenting with different ways of sort of putting my work up for sale. When I started, it was mostly just an open sale with sort of a minimum bid price set. And then after that, I sort of, with one piece, I actually did list it. And then last week, or I think it was the week before, I actually tried out setting up one of my works for an auction. So I think I'm still sort of experimenting with different ways on how to sort of sell my work and just trying to see what kind of collectors you attract by doing so. Yeah.
And these auctions get competitive on SuperRare, that you see, because you can kind of see who the other collector is that's bidding. You're like, you have rival collectors that you don't want them to get a piece that you love. But just if you see this here, kind of the last sale price, so 1.25 ETH. What is it like selling art for Ether? And what do you do once a purchase happens? Do you immediately receive that Ether to your MetaMask? Do you hold that Ether? Do you then send it back to Luno to sell it for traditional currency? What is it like getting paid in a cryptocurrency?
For me, what I usually do is I don't like having sort of an empty balance in my MetaMask wallet. Just because of gas fees and just wanting to have my money in different places. So what I usually do is I keep most of it in my MetaMask wallet, and then I do withdraw some and I do send some into my Luno wallet and sort of see what I do with that. But yeah, usually I just sort of split it in half.
Okay, so you mentioned gas fees for people who aren't familiar. So when you're tokenizing a piece, or when you're interacting with the blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain that these pieces live on, there's a transaction fee. And so you have to pay with your Ether each time you tokenize a piece. And how much does that tend to be? It seems like it's gotten more expensive lately. How much does it cost for you to actually tokenize one of these pieces onto the Ethereum blockchain?
It goes, your gas fee is dependent on the value of ETH at that time. But when I started off, it was quite cheap to gas my work. I think I usually used to mint my work. I usually would mint my work for between $30 to $40. Right now, I actually minted a piece a few hours before this, and I minted it at $161 simply because of the value of ETH. You know, so it really just fluctuates, just depends on the value of ETH.
And what's really interesting is that it's also determined by the demand for the Ethereum network. And so the Ethereum blockchain, if no one is using the Ethereum blockchain, fees are super cheap. But now that you have tens of thousands of artists and then you have a whole DeFi ecosystem, and there's so many use cases on this blockchain, everyone is competing to get their transactions in, whether it's minting art or whether it's transferring a stable coin. And so that drives the market up. And when you're minting, it's actually you're deploying a contract, which is a more gas intensive thing than just sending ETH from one balance to another. So that is a real commitment. That is, I saw this analogy on Twitter the other day. It's like not every photo gets printed. Like not every piece of digital media gets minted. Like you can't go around just minting everything that you do. It's not worth paying $100 for, but it adds some interesting permanence where when we're in a world that there's so much content and information online, having the ability to take a piece of content and say, I'm putting this on the blockchain, it's going to be here forever, and you're going to be able to trade it and hold it. Like that's what you're spending the $100 for, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then what is it like, you're getting paid in Ether, and the price of Ether a year ago was what, maybe a couple $100. Maybe it was $200 to $300. The price of Ether today is what, $1,300, $1,400? So you're getting paid in an asset that is volatile, but that has appreciated significantly. And so what does that feel like? Like, do you find yourself checking the price of Ether and kind of refreshing and kind of seeing that value go up and down?
Yeah, definitely. I do find myself, I'm checking the value of Ether, especially before I mint work, after I get an offer, and so forth. Yeah, I definitely constantly check the value of Ether. Yeah.
And it's interesting to see. I think one other element of just the way that crypto art works is you can see all of the bids that have been made. So you can see someone makes a bid for 1.5 Ether. As the price of Ether changes, there might have been someone who bought a piece for 5 Ether a year ago, but that was only $1,000. And now the piece sells for 2 Ether. And so at first, at face value, you'd be like, oh, yeah, they lost money on that. But in reality, now the Ether is more valuable. It's actually more valuable in dollar terms. And so does that make it confusing as an artist of just like, what should a piece be priced at? Like, what is a successful sale? Like when you have that fluctuation?
Yeah, it does get confusing, and also because a lot of us crypto artists, we set minimum bids. Sometimes you tend to forget, and if you set it to 1 Ether, now the value of ETH is going up. Sort of the value of the minimum bid price also just goes up. So I think it's becoming a bit stressful. You just sort of have to watch everything. You need to watch how much you list your sales for. You need to watch the value of the offers you receive and so forth. Yeah.
And it's interesting from a payments perspective that we don't see a lot of people using ETH to buy their coffee. Like ETH is not a transactional currency except for buying art. For some reason, ETH has become a currency for buying art because so much art is actually created, on the Ethereum blockchain. And so it's interesting and it's exciting to me that like as an artist, like you're getting paid in a asset that has appreciated in value that you can then hold on to as a financial asset. So, that's, the appeal of ETH. The downside is that it's fluctuating and makes it more confusing to price. And so maybe that becomes a stable coin in the future that someone can pay you with $100 US coin instead of ETH. So I wanted just while we're on this, I just saw you put this piece up. Like, this is amazing. Like, what is the backstory on this? That bot meets human, a collaboration, with an AI bot. Like, what did you do with this piece?
The bot, sorry, the sound was a bit bad. The bot meets human collaboration, right?
Yes. So we'd love to just hear the story of kind of what did you do with this piece and kind of what's unique about it?
Yeah. So it's actually my first collaboration on that I sort of mint. So, but basically, it's the painting is actually by that was created by Russian developers from Russia, Anna and Nikolay. So what the bot does essentially is it takes my artwork and it tries to replicate that. So the bot is learning how to paint through my work, and sort of. So what they basically trying to do now is sort of trying to sort of make it a bit more abstract, to sort of maybe give the bot a bit of personal style to the work. But basically, the bot is learning how to paint using your work as a reference. That's what the collaboration is about. Yeah.
Wow. So they took a bot and they fed it a bunch of different paintings that you've done. And this is something that the bot created from scratch that you didn't have to make. And now, this is a piece that you can sell that while you were asleep, a bot was creating this beautiful piece of artwork.
Yeah, definitely. So with this one, the bot actually just used one piece, but it's quite different from mine in terms of sort of like the brushwork textures and the colors. So I think that it's quite cool. I think it's quite cool. Yeah.
I can just see, like, I've seen other experiments in this area that the idea of AI generated art is just such a fascinating thing, but it can't do it on its own. It needs to have some reference. And then the artist that it's referencing, that comes out in the piece. So that is incredible. So I want to talk about where can this art be displayed? That as a collector, I purchase a piece like this. What can I do with it? And how do you think about the value of display of crypto art? If I'm not mistaken, did you do a physical frame for one of these pieces?
Yeah, I did.
To be able to, can you talk more about kind of solving that problem of giving more ways to display crypto art?
Yeah, so actually there are a couple of galleries, especially in sort of Asia, that have these screens in their galleries that put up digital work for display. And also, I think another easier way of displaying work is sort of having it printed. But then the problem with that is that would have to now fall on the collector's responsibility. But there are a lot of actually is a website where you can actually buy a digital canvas. I think there's also Samsung actually has something of that nature where you just put up a digital canvas of your collectibles, and they sort of just change throughout the day. And yeah.
So one of the really interesting aspects of this to me is that these tokens are created on Ethereum, which is an open public network and database, and then a bunch of third-party developers and companies can build new applications for that. And so it's not like one company has to build the way to display it. You can have many different companies. And so I've ordered a physical frame that I'm going to put behind me to hopefully be able to present kind of your pieces in the background of video calls. And then you could also have these displayed online as an avatar to be able to show that this is a piece that you own. And the example you gave of the galleries, like that seems like the next generation of a gallery, that you could have a piece that you purchased with your name next to it displayed across the world, other people are in a physical gallery looking at a piece that is a part of my collection that you created. And then that could be instantly sold and auctioned the moment that someone is looking at it. Like, you can't do that with physical art. You can't have an auction and switch owners of that physical art. No one's coming in and like changing it out, but you can have the owner that shows up, on that digital screen next to it change in real time as people display it at a gallery. And so I'm so excited to see how all of the things that are being built in this digital kind of COVID world, as we go back into kind of the physical world, how does that mesh together, where you have crypto art, being recognized as a real form of art and being displayed, in galleries. And I think we talked about this last time of like, digital art versus traditional art. Like, traditional art has always had this kind of fine art, easier to get in the gallery. Do you think that this helps to level the playing field and enable digital art to be treated as fine art?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely does help leveling the playing field out. And I think the way I'm seeing it, we're moving more into the digital space, especially now with the pandemic. People are always indoors, we're always on our screens. And I think in time, sort of presenting work on a digital screen is going to be more normalized. And if you look at our upcoming generations, they learn on tablets. Most schools teach kids on tablets. There aren't any physical books in certain schools. So you can sort of imagine that they spend so much time on the screen that digital art will sort of be the norm, or would be sort of their first preference when it comes to experimenting with art. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It kind of reflects kind of crypto broadly that, crypto for many young people, it's been around as long as they can remember. So it's the default. It's just normal rather than this new weird thing. And crypto art and digital art could be the same thing. So I want to get to this as like just one of the coolest things that I've seen in the idea of displaying crypto art in the metaverse, in these new galleries that are popping up. And so can you explain what we're looking at here? Like, what is this? How did you get involved with it? And like, is this not one of the coolest things that you've seen?
Definitely one of the coolest things. It's a virtual gallery. It's a virtual exhibition, and I was approached by One-Off. That's the person who sort of curated the whole virtual exhibition. But yeah, it's definitely cool. Yeah.
And it still feels like it's so early, but the fact that like you already have digital galleries that are popping up, right now, and this is the first kind of uniquely the first Black crypto art exhibit that they put together, which is, you can see how many, amazing artists there are, creating really, innovative work. And this gallery is actually, see if I can move around with it. It's actually 2 floors. So I have to try and go downstairs. I think the elevator might be the easier way to go. But like, we're seeing that art, and in many ways, art and like video games are blending, where like you have these virtual worlds, but you can actually own items in that virtual world. So here's another one of your pieces. That it used to be if you played a video game or you're in this digital context, there's no way to own something. Now, this is a world where each one of these pieces is owned by a different person, but it's all in a digital context. So it's still so early, but you can imagine, like, as we have augmented reality, as we have virtual reality, like there will be a metaverse, and there'll be an ownership layer of that metaverse that is, just fascinating to think how it will develop.
Yeah, definitely. I think one great thing about virtual exhibitions is that you can attend one just at the comfort of your own home. Now when there's a whole you can't go out much. So I think it's definitely something that's needed, especially who love attending virtual exhibitions. Yeah.
I think
Okay.
we wanted to open up for questions in a few minutes, but just wanted to ask kind of first one, what do you recommend for aspiring artists? How to get started with crypto art, kind of what lessons have you learned? And then what do you recommend for collectors and people that are interested in purchasing and engaging with some of your work?
I'd say for artists, I'd say that definitely do your research. There's so many other platforms that you can sort of tokenize your work on, but definitely do your research and try and see what would be a good fit for you. I know with these very popular platforms, SuperRare and Nifty Gateway, and those platforms, they don't really take much people. So I'd say that sort of have a plan B, have a plan C. Don't sort of look at one platform that you sort of want to get into. And for collectors, I'd say the same thing. Do your research, and I think I would say a good place to start are the popular platforms, to sort of just try and see what's going on, because in those popular platforms there's a lot of activity going on, meaning there's a lot that you can learn from that. Yeah.
And I think that the other benefit that I'd add just for folks at Visa of it's a great way to learn how to use a crypto wallet. Just try and go buy a piece of crypto art. Go to SuperRare. We can post some instructions in our Teams group. But just being able to interact with, set up a MetaMask, transfer some Ether into it, go engage with this. And I think it becomes a lot more real once you purchase it and you realize the value that there's another tweet today of buying is the new liking. On social media, people are liking work, they're commenting. It's such a shallow interaction that it's oh, thanks for the like. It doesn't really do anything. The way to actually engage and have a direct social connection is to actually purchase someone's work and to be able to help support artists so they can continue to create more. So I want to get a question from Charles. Do you still create any non-crypto art, or are you now exclusively every piece that you do is becoming crypto art?
I don't solely create to tokenize my work. A lot of my work is actually not tokenized. I like to treat SuperRare and maybe other platforms that I might join as a place where I just merely sell my work. I don't want to be sort of seen or labeled as a crypto artist. I'm still a digital artist, just selling my work on the blockchain market. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a super important distinction that it's just a tool for you. And it seems like today, because it's new and novel, people will say oh, you're a crypto artist, you're just a digital artist. And I think as this continues to go more mainstream, it'll just be the norm that, how do you sell work as a digital artist? Well, you tokenize that work and you sell it on one of these new digital platforms. There's nothing new or weird or crypto about that. Any other questions from folks at Visa here? See if I missed any of these in the chat. I guess, how are you thinking about what's next for you? You've been experimenting with different form factors. Here's a question: how do you promote your art? Have you just adding a piece to SuperRare? Are collectors just finding it on SuperRare? Or how do you think about your marketing and kind of you as an entrepreneur, how to go out and find collectors and be able to sell your work?
I think with me, the way I am looking into promoting myself this year is sort of being more involved in a lot of projects. I'm sort of something that is sort of outside of my comfort zone, like the collaboration with the bot, So I want to sort of gain some traffic to my profile by sort of just getting involved in innovative projects. I'm actually working on my second virtual gallery, but then sort of going to be a group exhibition where I involve other crypto artists on SuperRare. But yeah, that's sort of the way I'm looking at it this way. Just definitely more collaboration. Yeah.
It definitely seems like there's this kind of really tight community of crypto artists that it's supportive of each other, and like ways to collaborate and work with other people is a great way. So there's a question from Terry that Terry grew up in South Africa. What artists are you following just in general in South Africa?
Crypto artists in South Africa?
Artists in general. Are there other crypto artists that you're aware of, or what artists, even outside of crypto, are you following and are you inspired by?
Okay, outside of crypto art, there's an artist called Zandile Chabalala. She's a fine artist. I absolutely love her work. And I'd say also Karabo Poppy. She's quite popular, illustrator, but Karabo Poppy is very inspirational. And within the crypto art space, there is an artist called Tapo. He's actually a 3D artist and lives in Johannesburg. So yeah, I think those three artists are, for me, very inspirational. Yeah.
Very cool. And then are there, any kind of copyright, intellectual property concerns, with crypto art? Like, how do you think about that as an artist? And you mentioned before, people could post your work without crediting you on Instagram. Like, are you concerned about kind of copyright, with crypto art?
Yeah, I'm definitely quite concerned with it. Since not all my work is tokenized, I feel like, someone can just take my work, mint it on Rarible or sort of like a platform where there isn't sort of like an application process that sort of is involved. And yeah, I think that's the main concern, really, sometimes. Yeah.
So that seems like it's a challenge around, curation and controls of these platforms, of like, how do they make sure that, the pieces you're minting are actually your pieces, and I can't just go and mint your pieces and start to sell them. But it is unique that, you have your profile and your address, and, people know that that's coming from you, and so you can kind of see the first time that was minted from it. Is there a kind of the Louvre of crypto art? Is there a fine art gallery to find pieces? Like, would you see kind of SuperRare as like the most premium, crypto art gallery / marketplace? Or are there kind of other galleries if people want to find, some of the most kind of premium, really interesting art, where to go?
SuperRare, and I think also definitely SuperRare, and I think also Nifty Gateway. I think the more popular platforms are sort of the more premium ones, because there's obviously a lot more eyes on them. But SuperRare and Nifty Gateway, I think also Maker's Place, yeah.
In Nifty Gateway, have you sold anything on Nifty Gateway yet? Have you thought about doing they have this drop kind of process where they promote it all week, and then you got to get on, like, refresh your screen, like try and get it really quickly. Have you looked at doing something on Nifty Gateway?
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking into sort of applying and just sort of seeing how that space is. Yeah, I'm definitely looking into it.
Very cool. And then can someone rent or purchase the rights to your work for a limited time for a digital event? Like, I guess as a digital artist, there isn't really a notion of kind of renting digital art. It's kind of, you purchase it, you have to be able to own it to be able to use it. Can you think of other kind of interesting ways that your crypto art could be used by, let's say, a brand or a company, as a part of events that they do?
Yeah, definitely. I think digital art is quite easier when it comes to collaborations, especially like international collaborations. I think it can be printed on, I think also just with permission and sort of figuring out the paperwork and everything, but can definitely be used for different things, for a lot of collaborations. I think digital art just sort of makes it easier sort of to collaborate with a lot of brands. And I think that's why also a lot of brands do work with digital artists, because it's just easier, to receive the work and have it implemented on their products. Yeah.
And then one piece that I feel like we might have missed earlier was like, can you talk a bit about kind of the notion of royalties, where, the pieces that you're tokenizing, you're selling it in the primary sale. If I buy it and then I resell it, you still get a percentage of that sale. And so, if I buy your piece for $100 and I sell it for $100,000, in the traditional art world, you only got $100. Now you have the ability to participate in that upside. So what does that mean to you as an artist, kind of having these new channels of royalties?
Definitely, I think it's exciting. It's exciting and a good thing, because of digital art. Crypto art allows there to be a place where you can just track the movement of your work. You see, with traditional art, if you sell your work to someone, you don't know where it's going to end up. Whereas with crypto art, on the other hand, you literally know when it moves from one owner to the next, and you get royalties off of that. Yeah.
And it's interesting because you can see who has owned a piece before, which is pretty hard to do in the traditional art world. But knowing that, maybe there's a famous person that owned a piece before, and now someone's excited to purchase it because it used to be owned from a famous person's collection. And then the fact that all this is public data that you can track and you can see all these purchases happening over time is fantastic. So I think we're kind of right at 10 minutes. Last question from Raj was, can you sell the same artwork on two different platforms? What prevents you from selling the same piece on SuperRare and on Rarible? Do you see that as a challenge of some artists? How does a collector know that that's actually a one-of-one and not just a one-on-one on SuperRare, but not on another platform?
I think it depends on the platform that you're on. I think also that's why collectors should sort of be wary of where they buy the work. I think it all just comes down to seeing if that person is not catfishing you. You know what I mean? Just verifying if the artist is who they say they are. So I think also doing a lot of background checks on an artist is important before you sort of buy a piece. And I think also platforms like SuperRare help with sort of reducing that type of thing. Definitely, yeah. But you can't tokenize them the same work on different platforms. Yeah.
As a collector, it seems like what's most interesting is the story. Who the artist is and kind of the whole context, rather than just the image. If you think of just the image or the video has the product, then anyone can copy and download that image. But it's the ability to be able to purchase directly from an artist that that is actually the artist. And it's been amazing just getting to know you. Thank you for bringing me into crypto art, of kind of creating Midnight Blues as the first piece that really resonated with me. And so now as a collector, I'd love to help however I can, and think that you're just doing absolutely incredible work. Thank you for taking the time and sharing with folks at Visa, and excited for others to hear your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thanks for purchasing Midnight Blues. I really appreciate the fact that it resonated with you. I think it's always a great thing to, it always gives me a good feeling to have my work sold to someone who really, really values the piece and really connects with it somehow. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Lethabo. Have a great evening.
Thank you.